Joining me now is the Allianz Chief Executive Oliver Bäte, who joins me. Oliver, thank you. Good to have you, sir. Very much appreciated. As one of the world's largest insurers, asset managers, there's a much to cope with here. Let's start where we've just left off. We'll get to insurance in a minute. If we look at the way in which central banks are warning, and we know we're in a low interest rate environment, the premium for asset management now has to be surely risk premia in the market.
Yeah, good evening from Munich, Richard. Thank you for having me. So the question was, how do we look at markets? The issue for us is less, to be honest, what is happening in equity markets, because we are dramatically de-risked from equities given the environment. As you've heard from our former colleague Mohamed before, we thought that prices were inflated, so we've de-risked. But the real question is what is going to happen on credit? And that is very closely related to what the economy is going to do. And I share the comment of the lady you just talked to, that the situation might be much more difficult than the market priced it for today.
Right, but how does that now translate itself? Because we know that central banks are doing all they can. What do people like you, who are insuring and asset managing in the real market, in the real world,
yes,
what do you want to see more of or less of?
What we really need, Richard, is action by the governments. We need fiscal action. So the first one is to make sure that people do not run out of support at exactly the wrong point in time. We have what we call short working furloughing here, and we expect that only about 2/3 of the people that are in short work will return to jobs. Potentially 1/3 of the people in Europe will come back and have no jobs. So unemployment is significantly rising, and we need to deal with that and need to pre-think what we're going to do about it. The second one, savings rates have doubled. So we are standing at savings rate now across Europe about 20 to 25%. So people are not investing, they're not consuming, and we need to have real government action to mobilize that money for investment, not just consumption. And the third thing is we need to do that in a way, and Europe is particular about it, that is sustainable. Not just, getting more debt and spending more, but finding a way to finance that in a sustainable way and turn the economy into a sustainable model, including addressing climate change. My key worry is that we, with problems rising, will forget about reforms, right, and just spend thinking about the next month, the next quarter.
If we look at the insurance business, you've not been as badly hit as others, both in terms of pandemic insurance coverage, business interruption insurance. I'm wondering, do you see, for example, I'm not sure whether you are involved, we were talking with Lloyds about the insurance of the vaccinations industry as it now comes closer to having vaccinations. Do you see issues in terms of vaccination manufacturers and the difficulties, bearing in mind the speed with which this has been put together?
No, we are focusing actually, as Lloyds, we are ensuring clinical trials for vaccinations. We're very close to the action. We're offering supplemental help, and by the way, health insurance for health workers that are at the front line of dealing with COVID. So we are trying, like many others, to do our best in helping with the situation. What we can't do, however, is pay claims where there was no premium paid for, and we cannot ensure systematic breakdowns or governments deciding to shut down the economy and then paying for that. That is something we cannot do.
You see, that's the controversial bit, isn't it? And you'll be familiar with the court ruling in England earlier this week. But,
yes,
but that's the difficult bit, because as we're now going into regional lockdowns, I'm in the UK, well, the northeast has been locked down, parts of Germany have been locked down, parts of France. The argument goes, Oliver, you know it well, the argument goes, well, the insurance companies managed to wriggle out when it mattered most. You've heard the argument.
Yes, and it's a prejudice a lot of people have, and partially we have to self-reflect and take the blame for that. Why? I think the key source, Richard, my personal opinion, is the reason is that the products that we offer are often too complicated. They have been designed by lawyers and actuaries and not by people that understand clients. And our ability to communicate what we do actually cover and not cover has not been clear. And therefore, in our case, when things are really not clear, we need to stand up for that and clarify. And in case of doubt, real doubt, we have to pay. What we can do, and you know that from the United States and others, where people are trying to change contracts in hindsight and expand coverage, whether that's at the instigation of politicians and others, pay for something that was never foreseen. And to define that is not easy, I understand. But our job is to make clear to people and our clients first and foremost, what do we cover and what do we not cover? And that has not been so clear, and that's our fault.
Oliver, finally, briefly, give me a gut feeling for how your gut feeling is as we look now towards Christmas. Northern Hemisphere, it's dark now here in London and obviously in Munich where you are. What's your gut telling you about how this moves forward now?
So infections are going to rise. And the key thing is, however, and I think we're looking, in my personal opinion, at the wrong KPI. What we need to look at, also because increase in testing, is what is the development of serious complications out of COVID infections. We have a lot of young people that have caught the disease, but are actually having mild symptoms and are going through it fairly well. And we need to make sure it doesn't spread too fast. And it's often related to young people gathering, drinking lots of alcohol. So we have to think about that. But I'm more worried about the economic outcomes. I'm very worried about the gastronomy sector. I'm very worried about the travel sector, about people that run hotels. They need real support, and it has to be unbureaucratic and it has to work. And it will go well into 2021. So we cannot think about having all these things rolling off as we speak. And if, particularly for restaurants that have been able to serve clients outside due to the great weather we've all enjoyed across Europe, we now need to really help them in all of the work that's connected. Why? Because it's often the most vulnerable people in our society that have the lowest wages, to have the lowest savings rate, and to have the lowest resilience. So we need to focus on those that need our help.
Oliver, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking this time.